From September, learning a foreign language will be compulsory for children from the age of 7, but the Confederation of British Industry says that schools should look beyond the popular choices of French and Spanish.
A survey of employers found that while European languages were the most in demand, more and more businesses now need workers who can speak Arabic and Mandarin. So we're asking, should more pupils be encouraged to learn those languages, and how practical would that be for schools? We're joined now by Catherine Cheetah, who teaches foreign languages, and James Wood, a Mandarin speaker whose language skills have been essential in his career. Welcome to you both. Catherine, it's going to be quite tricky, isn't it? Finding teachers, pupils who are able to grasp the concepts of Mandarin at the age of 7, or am I just being naive?
No, I think that children can grasp a foreign language quite easily, but I do think you're right about the skills of the teachers required. It may be that primary school isn't necessarily the right place to put in languages such as Mandarin and Arabic. And I think that the CBI report is saying that we must still retain our interest in European languages, particularly in French, German and Spanish. But my concern about bringing in additional languages like Arabic and Mandarin is that we do need to have clear pathways through for our learners. So if a primary school is going to bring in a different language, a more minority language at the moment, such as Mandarin or Arabic, we need to say that transition to secondary school is really important.
They're minority languages in the way they're taught here, but of course in the way they're spoken around the world, they are huge and growing in importance. James, how old were you when you first latched onto Mandarin?
Yeah, sure. Well, before going to university, I took a gap year and went to China and taught English. Didn't speak the language at all, but that was when the language journey really came alive for me, and I got a real kick out of being able to pick up the language. From there, I went on to university, studied at the University of Sheffield, and that was an intensive Mandarin course, and we studied over in China.
Were you someone who picked up languages naturally?
Not at all, and I think that's obviously quite encouraging as well, that there are more trends, that there's more opportunities for people with language skills. It was really, as I say, when I went over to China, got a big kick out of learning the language. I think that the difficulty is, obviously, in the classroom setting, it is quite difficult to recreate that excitement and adventure of being somewhere new and a fantastic journey of being in China. But that's, as I say, what really solidified it for me and spurred me on to get the fluency that I have in Mandarin.
Often, Catherine, people, and I'm one of these people, I can barely speak my second language, speak it okay, but not great. But people think, okay, if I don't learn, if I'm not good at learning a language, full stop, regardless be it French, Spanish, or considered more easy, they shy away from languages generally. So surely if you kind of ingrain that learning of a new language when you're very young, it helps pick up other languages, doesn't it?
Absolutely right, and I think that we have to stop apologising for what we perceive to be our poor ability to speak other languages, and we have to just be confident about it. I teach French in 2 primary schools, but in those schools we've adopted a scheme that was set up in Redbridge in London, which is Language of the Month. So each month we take the morning and the afternoon register in a particular language. Recently that has been Mandarin in those schools, and Russian and Portuguese. We've got Portuguese now in one of my schools, and a Portuguese parent came in to speak to the children. So it's very important to raise awareness of the importance of being able to speak languages, even just to be able to know how to behave in those languages and with those cultures, and to be confident and push yourself forward.
James, did you speak languages when you were younger, going through, you said you picked up Mandarin quite late?
Yes, I certainly had French and then later German at middle school.
And were they helpful in any way?
I think that it was, in terms of developing that mindset of learning languages. But because Mandarin is so different, it was quite a big thing that at university people can go into the course. I went to the University of Sheffield. You can go into it without the prior knowledge of languages, because the characters are so different, because it's a tonal language. It is very different from learning a European language.
Because that's the thing, isn't it, Catherine? Whether French, the more traditional languages taught in British schools, are good building blocks. I mean, I take the point about the principle of getting interested in languages, but do they help?
I think they help tremendously. I think that if we look at something like Mandarin, as James was saying, it's so different. It's a tonal language. If we were really serious about bringing Mandarin in from an early age, we would have to establish that there were continuous pathways for learning. That's my concern. But I think my experience is very similar to that of James. I learnt French, German and Latin at school, and I had the possibility of picking up later on Russian or Mandarin, and I indeed had friends who went on to study Mandarin. It's just a question of sorting out some kind of strategy. At the moment, most of our primary teachers who can teach a language have knowledge of French, German or Spanish or Italian.
Yeah, so they're more traditional languages.
Yes.
It's really interesting. We'd be interested to hear what people at home think as well, but their own experiences, because I know you're going to come back later. That's Catherine Cheetah and James Kent. Thank you both for now.
Thank you.
It is 16 minutes past 7. You're watching Breakfast from BBC News. Here are the main stories. The UK's leading